Today's guest is Charmaine Bee. I'm very excited to get another episode out finally. When I first started this podcast, I wanted to publish an episode every week, and for a time I was doing that. But my life changed when I moved to Key West, and so now I'm interviewing guests and publishing their episodes whenever I can. At some point, I would like to get back to weekly episodes, but for now, I'm moving slow, moving very slow. I hope that with my current pace, you all still remember the podcast and check back periodically. Before I go on, I just want to say whether you've been listening to Meet Me at the Throughline since I launched the podcast last year, which, by the way, the podcast birthday is this month and next month, and I'm planning a solo episode to celebrate, or this is the first time you're listening to an episode, thank you for being here. I co-create this podcast for you, for people who are interested and curious about this podcast and, what folks are sharing. It resonates. I encourage all you listeners out there to share the podcast with anyone you think may be interested in listening to it. I also encourage you to subscribe to Substack if you want episode updates directly to your inbox, and to follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and Instagram, all linked in the show notes. Please like and comment on the posts on these platforms, as these actions help us reach more people, boost engagement, and show the guests and I that people out there are really listening to and appreciating the episodes. That like, that comment, that share, it goes far. It's nice when the external responds back to you, like you put something out there and the universe, if I want to say it like that, responds back to you. It's actually a great feeling. I'm sure for the guests also, to see that comment where someone was like, I really enjoyed this episode. I do get a lot of private messages that people send me like, oh, I really love the podcast. I love the episode. I really resonated with episode blah, blah, blah. So also welcoming private messages. But yeah, just getting that feedback goes a long way. I tell many of the guests, if not all the guests, like, yeah, this is how many times your episode has been downloaded, because I think that feedback is really helpful. Like just being like someone acknowledging that they've listened and that they appreciate the episode or found it interesting and or helpful. All right, let's get into this intro. In this episode, Charmaine talks about dreamwork, swimming in the ocean, living and creating in Brazil, and more. Here is Charmaine's bio. Charmaine, raised in the Sea Islands of South Carolina and based in Bahia, Brazil, and Brooklyn, works in both visual arts and herbalism, using textiles, sound, video, movement, and writing. Their work connects geography and spirituality, finding the fibers between inner and outer landscapes. Collectively taken, their practice is a giving practice. They explore their own imagination and history, personal and ancestral, Black diaspora, and Gullah, transmuting their findings into skilled craft to provide space for others to do the same. Some reflections from this episode. I took some time to write my reflections down, and you know what happened? They went somewhere, because what I do is I write my reflections in a draft email, but then I do it on my phone and the computer, and then before you know it, I can't find it, and it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. So what I will share is that I think when it comes to dreams, everyone has their own experience. Some people are not interested in dreams. For other people, it's a core part of their lives. Maybe, you hear other folks talk about dreams and they're so passionate and excited about dreams. And maybe you wonder, oh, why am I not the same? Or someone's sharing these really vivid dreams and you hardly have a dream, or you dream and you can hardly remember, and maybe you're like, well, I don't dream like that, or I never remember my dreams. And I just want to tell folks that dreaming is not about like, in my opinion, dreaming is not about like comparing our dream lives to another person's dream life. You know, I just don't think I just don't think that's helpful. You know, what do you get out of like, wow, you've had these amazing dreams and I don't dream like that, or wow, so much for my dream life. I'm not having any prophetic dreams. And I just don't think I don't think it's helpful. I think our dream lives are something unique to us, just how every person, is unique, like our fingerprints. And what I'm interested in is how a person cultivates their dream life, because I've been tracking my reconnection to the dream world. And for a long time, like over 2 decades, I was not thinking about dreams. I was dreaming, but I'd be like, oh, I had that dream, and oh my, I had that nightmare, and just go about my day. But I, at some point, wanted to connect to the dream world. And I realized at some point that I had to, this is how I understand what's going on in my own life. I had to communicate to the dream world and say, hey, I actually want to connect with you. I actually want to connect with my dreams. And I felt like, and I think I think that whole understanding or experience is similar to when it comes to ancestors, connecting to our ancestors, our chosen ancestors, the different energies and spirits in our lives, and connecting to God, source, whatever you want to call it, the earth. I think it's all the same sort of like you it isn't like, how should I say this? At least for me, it made a difference to communicate to myself in the dream world. I do want to connect to you. I do want to connect to you. And the more I was saying that and doing that by action, my dream life became more open and alive. And that's not to say that now I'm suddenly having all these lucid, vivid dreams and I'm remembering every dream. It's like I think sometimes there's there can be some sort of like, the dream life has to be like this, like you're building something, like if I just do this, then this will happen. And I think it's just something that happens and that unfolds. It's mysterious, it's illogical. And for some folks, their dream, like, I have a lot of thoughts about dreams, why certain people are the way they are, and I can go into that. Um, but I think it's mostly about our own relationship with dreams. And yeah, I guess this is all to say that I was never a person who was born connected to my dream world. Even when there are dreamers in my family, you know, I don't have to say everything, but even when there are dreamers in my family, so you can be around dreamers and around dreams and still not be really connected to the dream world. And yeah, I've been tracking how I've been connecting to my dreams. And let me see if I can pull it up really quick. Um, it's in my Google Drive. Let me see if I can get it. And yeah, I'm sharing this to tell folks that, like, if you're just starting off wondering about dreams, that in itself is great. To wonder, to be curious, to jot down that one dream, to share that dream with someone, to ask someone, what have you been dreaming about lately? and to celebrate those folks who's dreaming li who are tending to their dreaming lives, who've been doing it for years. To celebrate the prophetic dreamers, you don't have to dim your light and do all these things and contort yourself and be smaller for whatever reason. Okay, let me see if I can pull this up. Dreams. Yeah, okay, I should have this up. Um, yeah, I have this document. It's called Synthesizing My Dream Journey. And so this is really, I mean, I never thought I'd share this. I don't think it's like too personal not to share, but I think it's a great example of how I think it's a great example of what a dream journey could look like. Yours doesn't have to look this way. Um, so what I have written down is, and so again, I had lots of reflections on this episode that I couldn't find. Um, I think like I have a lot of thoughts on what Charmaine shared. Like this episode, but I was thinking, oh, what could be helpful for people? And I think maybe just sharing ways people can connect to their dream life. And Charmaine shares how they connect to their dream life and interpret dreams. Okay, so what I have written down here is, oh my God, I gotta pee. It just comes on. Anyway, damn, okay. So, I write down, I have records of me in 2018, starting to record a lot of my dreams in the form of draft emails. I gotta stop doing that. Um, I participated in a dream interview series where I started interviewing family members about their dreams, but it was mostly about their desires, not necessarily nightly dreams. And then, Charmaine got their herbalism certification and education with Empress Karen Rose. Um, and I actually participated in a conference that Miss Karen Rose organized with her team, the Structure of Dreams Spiritual Herbalism Conference in 2020, and I attended it with my mom. That was digitally. Oh my God, you guys, wait, I gotta go pee. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm back. You gotta listen to your body. Pee when you have to pee. Otherwise, I would have been struggling and uncomfortable. And why? Why? So, my mom and I attended the Structure of Dreams Spiritual Herbalism Conference. And then in 2021, I participated in this online gathering called Meeting Oceania. And I learned about dream sharing as a cultural practice in Vanuatu in the Pacific. Um, and Really inspired by this artist named Kate Genevieve out of Aotearoa, New Zealand. Um, she does a lot of dream tending. Shout out to you, Kate. I've made several mixed media, analog, and digital collages about my dreaming experiences. And I see here that I started listening to Charmaine's Hotline in 2022 or 2023, question mark. And yeah, then I go on more experiences like Oniric Space. I interviewed another person named Charmaine who runs Oniric Space, um, where I learned about people who've kept dream journals across space time, and then that's how I learned about Dr. Kelly Boakley's work. And then I participated in one of Charmaine Bee's dream recall workshops. Then Cherise Francis, who I also interviewed, was doing a project on Benjamin Banneker's dream journal. So there's a lot of, I'm just tracking like, oh, okay, this is what's going on in my dream life. And there's other stuff I didn't share, but and I'm also in a dream sharing circle right now. Shout out to my dream circle. We've met for like a year, which is pretty cool. And so yeah, I didn't know what I was going to share for the reflection part, but I was telling Charmaine that communal dream sharing is really what made me made me believe more in dreams. And I think communal dream sharing is like it's almost like a must. Like if there isn't any communal dream sharing, whether it's with your family, your friends, even your coworkers, your in your I don't know, your neighbors, whatever community, like I feel like not something's wrong, but like like yeah, like I don't know. Yeah, I guess like something's wrong or what's going on. And I also want to acknowledge that there are a lot of people who aren't interested in dreams, and that's totally fine. There are people who didn't grow up thinking about dreams. That's totally fine. Like, again, everyone has their own dreaming experiences, and I think it's a matter of a person. I think it's a matter of the kind of relationship a person wants to cultivate with their dream life. What and nightly dreams, but also the dreams that like I want to open a restaurant. I want to make more time to rest. I have this dream of becoming a strong swimmer or and because dreams and sleep are connected, I definitely feel like they're connected to those dreams and our desires. Well, I hope something in that reflection was interesting, helpful, inspiring. I'm really grateful that I got a chance to speak to Charmaine because there's so many elements of this interview to dive deeper in. And I really love how all of Charmaine's different interests, how they are weaving their interests together. And it just seems like I don't know, I just love all that they're exploring. And you know, as I've told guests before, unfortunately or fortunately, I only have so much time, energy, attention span, and if I could, I'd be paying attention to all the people I admire at the same time, and looking here and wanting to do that, wanting to do that, wanting to do that. And and so, I'm trying to stay engaged with what people are sharing as best as I can when I can. And I feel like Charmaine is a person who I just like other people, I might not be like tuning in constantly, but like this is someone who I feel like I'm following their journey. And it's pretty cool to see them creating this creative arts wellness space in Bahia. And it looks like they are getting amazing support. And I hope anyone out there who wants to support Charmaine, the fundraiser link is in the show notes, and please share that. Well, I feel like I'm rambling at this point, so I'll close here and say thanks so much for meeting us at the Throughline. I hope you enjoy episode 26 with Charmaine Bee. Welcome to the podcast, Charmaine. I'm
Hi.
so excited to have you. How are you?
I'm excited to be here as well. I'm feeling good. I had a nice swim this morning. I'd mentioned already, like I had a really nice swim this morning. It's been a little overcast the past week or so. So when I got up this morning at 5 something and I saw that the sky was clear and the sun was emerging, I felt really excited um, to swim. And I thought a swim would be really just helpful and grounding before our conversation as
Mm.
well. Yeah, I'm doing well. How are you?
I love it. I'm going to ask you a question about swimming, but you're one of a handful of swimmers who inspire me in my swim life.
I remember you were
Yeah.
you were swimming last year. You were like in the pool. Were you taking lessons or like what were you doing swimming wise?
Well, I was taking swimming lessons last fall,
Yeah, I
but then
remember.
my schedule switched up and I couldn't do it anymore. I feel like I've been trying to take swimming lessons, but I feel like yeah, between you, Nora Almeida, the first guest I interviewed for the podcast, there's another swimmer. I just pay attention to y'all and feel inspired. I'm gonna ask you some questions about your swimming journey. So I love
That's
that you
cool. I'm happy to answer any of those questions. And it took me a while to like actually start doing it consistently. Different lessons, different classes, different moments. So I'm supporting you in your swim journey, You're gonna be
Thank
swimming.
you. Thank
Well,
you. Yeah, I just feel like it's always me trying to find consistency and then
yeah,
being disrupted.
yeah.
But I'm still holding on. It's like one of my highest, biggest dreams is just to swim, be a strong swimmer, be in the
Mhm.
ocean.
Mhm.
I really like how you share about swimming in your newsletters. Because I don't know, I don't think anyone else besides Nora, who I'm listening to, talks about swimming. Um, but you, and correct me if I'm wrong, you grew up in South Carolina, right? In Gullah Geechee country?
Yeah, I grew up in Beaufort. Yeah, Beaufort, South Carolina, and I didn't really swim growing up. Like my family and I we didn't go to the beach so much.
Mhm. So
Yeah,
when,
but I grew up in Beaufort, South Carolina. Yep.
wow, what is the land and the waters like there?
Um, it's really incredible. Like there's a lot of marshland and wetland, a lot of wetland birds, um, which like gave to rice production and what gives to rice production in the area. But in the moment where that was like a really big industry in the South. Like it's ideal climate for that. And there are a lot of points where the river and the ocean meet. And just a lot of points, a lot of bridges. So like I did have a big fear of bridges growing up, but I'm just like now kind of visualizing some of the drives that I took. There's always water to be seen, always like that tall, high marsh grass to be seen. Um, a lot of flatness. Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just imagining what it must have been like to grow up there, you know. I don't know. I always maybe I overuse the word magic, but I don't know. It seems
There is no overuse
magical.
of that.
Thank you. I'm just like while I was thinking of this question, I was like, I feel like the magic of that place, even though I don't know anything about it. Um, well, a lot of your work involves dreams, and I wonder what was your dream life like as a kid or a teenager while you were there growing up in Beaufort?
Yeah, that's exactly, yeah, what I was thinking about when you said magic, because I think as, we moved to South Carolina when I was 7 or 8 from New York.
Oh,
That's
wow.
where he is from, and I was born in New York, and my mom moved back during that time. So I kind of, I would visit South Carolina in the summer, before we moved there to visit my grandmother. But for pretty early on, like age of 7, 8, I was like, I need to get back to New York. That's kind of like the thinking. And so I was engaging with the land in a way that was like very magical, lots of walks, going to cemeteries, playing in woods, you know. But I think I don't want to say I took for granted. That feels like a strong word because yeah, I was like 7 and just missing the environment that I had come from. But I think I definitely as an adult and just looking back at my time in the landscape, I'm able to appreciate like the magic on the land, in the day to day, like more deeply, as living outside of the space. But during that time growing up, my dream life, like there was a lot of vivid magic in that and a lot of um like during sleepovers with friends or while camping, really sleepovers with my cousins, we would try and join each other's dreams. And, um, it was very common to wake up and talk about dreams with our grandmother and, ask what things meant. And, um, you know, same with my mom, it was very common to process dreams and to
Yes.
think about it as a type of reality or a space that had information that we
Hmm.
need in our waking life and in our moments in waking. And so those dreams when I was little on that land were extremely vivid. I was having like recurring episodic dreams. I was like having some anxiety around my dreams because they were so vivid and visually intense. And there were a lot of dreams. Like I used to have this series of dreams where like I would be given a passcode in the beginning of the dream, like a password. And I would have to remember it through the duration of the dream to be able to like get out of the dream and wake up. But like all of
Oh
these
my
things would
gosh.
happen during the dream that could like potentially alter my memory. And so sometimes, like honestly, sleep and dreaming was stressful because there was so much happening in that space. And I was also like a vivid like reader and I liked horror movies. And so like that was kind of like seeping into the space too of dreaming.
Wow.
Now looking back on it, I'm like, wow, I had like this entire all these worlds that I would go to while younger, like many of us when we're younger. Yeah.
Yeah, you cut out at the end there, but you were saying how like worlds, going into worlds, and I was like, gosh, it just sounds like your dream life at that time sounds so alive. Like I just had this this image of like water coming up from the earth and just like a reverse waterfall or something coming from the earth, and it having this force or this power, but yeah, something. And that's pretty cool. I mean, I was gonna ask you, I didn't include this question, but I was gonna ask you, like, do you share your dreams with your family? Because I started doing that a few years ago, and that it was enough. That was doing that makes me believe more in dreams, if that makes sense. That like
Does.
something
It's
is
very
going on
communal.
here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you would wake up, talk to your grandma, talk to your mom, your cousins, and be like, what did you dream about? Wow.
Yeah, or like I dreamed about this. What do you think this means? Or I saw this person in the dream. Or sometimes just in day-to-day conversation, just listening to the elders around me process their dreams, and then um or like someone telling a dream and then learning certain dream etiquette, or like, one big like something that's coming to mind that I'm remembering is when I don't remember the exact moment I learned that you don't let someone who passed, who you dream of, touch you in the dream. But like I'm thinking about how like that sort of information was passed along very much like in day to day, like while, not always necessarily in the morning after dream time. It could be like a conversation about dreams like later in the day, or someone calling my grandma about a dream. And so when I was waking up and talking about dreams with like cousins or the next day at school, yeah, a lot of us were modeling like what we saw the adults around us doing, like our moms and aunts and um, grandmothers and their good friends doing together,
Yeah,
which is how a lot is passed down.
I love that. I think like that's a huge part for me, the communal
Yeah.
part, the sharing with
Yeah.
other people. That's when it starts making sense. Like me in my dream journal, that makes sense too, but it just solidifies something where maybe you're in
Starts
your
to
friends group.
gel.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And then I was
Yeah.
thinking about kid dreams because I would ask my niece who's 9 when I was spending time with her, what did you dream about? And her dreams would sound so kid-like. Like she would say something about like this giant marshmallow was chasing me, something like that. And I'd be like, what did you watch? But yeah, I don't yeah, I'm fascinated by this whole dream sharing, especially in families. Um
Yeah.
well, I first learned about your work through the Dream Support Hotline. I don't know how I came across it, but can you share with our listeners like what is this project about?
You sent some dreams in.
I did.
You did. You
I
did. And
did.
I feel like one dream that's popping into my mind, I think it's yours.
Mm.
I think I'm remembering one of the dreams that you shared about a
Oh,
house, um, and wind. Well, yeah, we'll talk after. I think that's your dream, but and I didn't connect that it was you until you came to the liver workshop. But the communal piece is part of this dream support hotline work that I was doing and took a pause last year and am starting again this year in
that's
this
great. Whoop, whoop.
and I'm so excited. Um, and so part of like what you're saying about the communal aspect and what's so amazing to me is how the voice, like sharing it out loud through voice, or just the means by which we are able to communicate with people, even if it's like passing a note side to side. It's when we share in community, more details about the dream seem to come to life and drop in. Like when I'm sharing, I find myself remembering more about what happened in the dream, and you know then of course like getting insight from the people I'm sharing with, and kind of looking at the symbols that come to me in a particular way, or hearing about a life experience that whoever I'm sharing with, a friend, a loved one, may have that is in relationship to the dream that then kind of like flips an interpretation on its side. And so I was thinking about I love the radio and thinking about how important like sharing and community
Mhm.
dreams are, and started this dream support hotline, which is basically a listener radio show where people can call in with Black people. Specifically, it's a Black dream support hotline. And so it's where callers can call in and share a dream that they've had recently or in the past, a dream where they are seeking some support in interpretation. A dream that might be really vividly intense or like really dense in terms of symbols that like kind of, sometimes when you wake up and you just feel the dream still in your body, like in your chest,
Mm.
like you kind of feel like you're still in the location. Like sometimes dreams that intense to dreams that even feel more mundane that people just simply want to share to get some insight with. And so the hotline is set up where people can call in, leave a message with the dream, and then I listen to the dream, record my interpretation, and put it in a radio show format, arrange it in a radio show format alongside different experimental sounds that I make and music. And then it's streamed once a month online. Yeah.
That's such an amazing idea. Because it's like if you at that time I felt like I was when I came across the dream support hotline, I felt like I was in this space of like finally reconnecting to my dreams because before
Yeah.
that I was not paying attention to my dreams. And coming across this project, I don't know, it I listened to other people's dreams and it just really opened up the dream world for me. And I'm glad I did send in some dreams because it's it's like where else can I do this? Especially if you are just you don't know it. You don't know anything from anything. And then here's this dream support hotline for Black people, you know? So I
Yeah, I'm glad that you were able to listen to other people's dreams and that they were helpful. That really, yeah, that was deeply part of the intention and the purpose for me to kind of create like a Black diasporic dream archive
mm,
of symbols where we could kind of be together in these dream worlds that we share that are so overlapping, you know?
yeah, because you know what my experience is like. I'll just be like laying down listening and I'll hear someone's voice and it feels
Yeah.
like I got like an earpiece out into this dream archive and I'm just listening to someone's crackly voice like I don't know how to explain it like yeah and I'm just listening. It's very interesting. So I'm glad that you're going to continue it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, how do you personally approach interpreting dreams? Because I feel like, some people, they like interpreting dreams, they don't. What is your approach to interpreting dreams?
Um, I really like my approach is inquiry based when it's someone in front of me. With the hotline, it was a little different, but I really like to listen, like listen to what the person is saying the dream is, and like listening, um, like with my full body, like almost doing a scan, like listening for like the actual unfolding of the dream, but like listening for um facial expressions and gestures and change in the voice, and like if the voice peaks up when they're talking about a certain part of the dream, I'm curious like how that sits with them. And after listening completely and fully to the dream, then I ask questions about like certain points that kind of like I intuitively felt a ping about, like, oh, tell me more about this, or like, what does the window mean to you? Or did you, if they're like animals, like, oh, did you see animals that day, or did you grow up with animals? Or like, identifying where I felt or sense that they had like high emotional and energetic resonance with a certain aspect of the dream and kind of like choosing that as a doorway to go a little bit deeper. I love interpreting in that way. And then I usually kind of merge that with some of the symbols that not only I learned about growing up, but like symbols that have become apparent to me just through my life as a dreamer, just living in different locations. I've lived in different cities throughout the US and have traveled, and my dreams are so different in each space. And I used to have a very strong dream journaling practice. I don't write my dreams so much anymore, but I do every now and then. And I love now to record my dreams. I like it's now an audio practice for me. But there was a point when they were and I was like every single morning for years, like writing the dreams down, pages and pages. And what that did was help strengthen my own personal dream archive. Like I recommend this for folks who are like wanting to dive deeper into understanding their own symbols. It helped deepen my archive so then I could then, the date is there because I'm kind of journaling too. After I like get the dream stuff out, I'm journaling about other stuff going on. So the date is there. And so I'm then able to see and get a sense of what symbols come up for me during certain seasons, certain moon cycles. And so with that information that kind of came out of my personal archive, I can then think about like how that plays out for um, a dream that someone is sharing with me. In addition to like asking questions about like where they're located, like what's going on. I like to ask people like how their digestion is doing, like because the ways in which we digest physiologically do impact the way that we dream and process in our sleep. And so, yeah, it's a bit of like deep listening, body scanning, understanding like some logistics around like location and like eating and time frames and also people's relationships to particular symbols more so than me placing my symbols directly on top of what's happening in someone else's dream world. Is kind of a swimming or merging of like symbols together and understanding like the place that people are dreaming from.
Oh, I love that. Ah, that was a word. I
What?
love that. Yes, because when
that
you what did you say?
that question was helpful. I like talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm just like I just think it's so helpful to hear what you just shared because it shows how you can engage with your dreams, how you can deepen it with a dream practice.
Yeah.
Because I think back to my past self where I wanted to connect with my dreams, but it, you know, I think it's really important to have examples or, just people or books or whatever to see. Um, gosh, oh, I can't wait to listen back to that. That was beautiful. I'm just like, see, I don't know. Do you think you're born to do this dream work?
So
I'm just like, wait a minute. This is sounding like you came in the world to do this.
I am born. I am born to do this dream work. Yes.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Thank,
Oh,
yeah, thank you for the space to say that like confidently and freely. I definitely am grateful for my family and where I grew up. Like this is just there. Yeah, I just grew up surrounded talking about this and thinking about it so much. And where I grew up, there are also families where there are people in the family, like people in the family who are like dreamers, and I grew up around a lot of people like that. My sister dreams a lot, and prophetic dreams. And so I feel like there's something to that region that I came from that, oh my goodness, I was so upset when we left New York. And I'm so grateful now, looking back, that I was able to be raised there and go back to New York after college. And there's definitely something to coming from that space that that nurtured this part of my life that I'm to share for sure. Yeah. I'm
That's
here to do it. I'm here for
beautiful.
dreaming. Yeah.
Ah, that's beautiful. And it's so interesting that you're saying this because I have a dream later on about a question later on about place and dreams. So we're
Oh,
gonna circle back to this, you
yeah, let's
know.
do it.
Um, so in addition to your dream work, you're also an herbalist and have focused on sharing workshops on the liver. Why the liver?
Ah, because the liver is simply amazing. It's um but like more directly, like the liver, I first really got into thinking about and working with my own liver when I was studying herbalism. And my teacher, I was working with Karen Rose
Hey,
during
shout out to Empress Karen Rose.
Karen Rose. And during level two training, part of our work is to walk with an herb. So to be with that herb every day through ingestion or sleeping with the herb or meditating with the herb or, being engaged, being in relationship with the herb every day. And so I chose burdock. I said, this plant just seems intense, like, in terms of its relationship with the liver. And Karen had mentioned like yeah, just some stories around people taking burdock and just fully speaking their mind. And I feel like during that time, I was trying to figure out ways to do that more directly and clearly. And also, I'm a Scorpio, and I feel like sometimes some of the feedback I was getting was that my shares were blunt. So I was just trying to find some balance, but also I was like, no, I want this throat chakra to feel free. And
Yes.
um, I was like, let me sit with burdock. And then during my time with burdock, and learning more about the liver, in traditional Chinese medicine, its relationship to Jupiter and its relationship as a filtration organ to emotions and how we process anger, I was learning so much about a lot of this residual anger and even, yeah, confusion that I was processing about like my family or even like my relationship with my mother, like the tension there. And I felt like burdock was leading me into this process of viewing the just connecting with the spiritual aspect of like what the liver is here to show us. And for me, that it is okay to be angry, to be angry. And like it's even hard to say. I was like angry.
Mhm.
Like it's okay to like
Yeah.
have that emotion and process it and speak on it. And when I was working with burdock, I definitely needed affirmation around that. And the deeper I dove into the liver and just started to learn how it is set up physiologically, like its size, its depth, how it's like, one of our largest organs, it really pretty much is situated along the entire torso and has like all of these different quadrants and that are responsible for different things. And, part of our umbilical cord from when we were in gestation is, in our current liver. And it's an organ that that takes up so much space in the body, that is so responsible for our physiological digestion, our hormonal output. It just holds so much and filters so much um, energetically, physiologically, spiritually, that um, I think that it just, I want to say, like, requires more attention and knowing from us and connecting from us. And it's so easy to overlook. And one last thing I'll say in response to that question is what helped me circle back to doing workshops specifically about the liver was learning about my thyroid and like receiving a diagnosis about my thyroid and just having this moment where I was like, wait, there's so many organs that are keeping us moving that we like don't know kind of like the basic function of
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
um the requirement is almost that like you are you move into like advanced biology or anatomy to know these very basic functions that can actually help us, especially, Black people, especially people who are not white and are impacted by medical racism. Like knowing some of these basic functions can help us advocate for ourselves when we are in conversation with these doctors who can sometimes be so incredibly dismissive. And so when I had this diagnosis and I was like, wait, what does the thyroid actually even do? And then, you know, finding out that I was angry that like I didn't really know like so much about this organ. And the advice I was getting was to like take a radioactive pill to dissolve it. And I'm like, wait, actually, I'm angry about that. And I want to know more about this organ and like feel some agency around like how I can be a part of this healing process, instead of just kind of melting this organ away without the full understanding. Circled me back, this anger, like, and touching in on this circled me back to my like training, my herbalism training, and making self protocol, but also like what I was learning about the liver. And then this kind of like prompted me to lean even more deeply into like some of the physiological function like of organs. Mhm.
Ooh, there was a lot in there. I'm just like
Yeah, I know. Sometimes I try and be
no,
brief.
no, girl, no. Every single word was needed. You needed to say every single word. I'm sure the listeners out there appreciate what you just shared. I know I do because you what what maybe I should have said it differently, but I just resonated with what you just shared about, having agency of
Yeah.
knowing about your body, of being able to take care of yourself with plants and herbalism, and just knowing about our bodies, like knowing about the liver. That's huge. That's
Yeah.
huge. And then the medical racism. There's been so many people in my family who've experienced racism going to the doctors that it's gotten to the point where they don't go to the doctors. They'll have serious health conditions, don't want to go. And
Trust isn't there. How could it
yeah,
be?
yeah. So when
Yeah.
you have someone saying or leading a workshop where you get to learn about the liver, and they look like you, and you're living in this world where you don't know if you can go to the doctor or not without being XYZ. I think
Mhm.
that is coming into a space of empowerment. And I
Yeah.
really love how you're thinking about the liver, all the different dimensions, the physiological part, the spiritual, the energetic.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've taken a liver workshop with you. I don't think, but now that you, I mean, I work with burdock, and I feel like maybe it's time to go to the next level, like maybe it's time to, like
Yeah,
I
yeah, try it out. I was sleeping with burdock. Like I was like putting it under my pillow. I was making all kinds of tea blends. I was making tincture. I was going to Prospect Park and just hanging out with it.
hmm
Yeah,
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 yeah. Well, I just think it's just some beautiful, powerful offerings, because a lot of people are doing work where if you just stop and pay attention, it's like, wow. But I know that, we all have our lives and it's go, go, go. But that's what I'm realizing in my own life. If I stop and see what folks are doing, you
amazing.
know,
Yeah.
yeah. And I honestly feel like I could just talk to you about the liver, but based on what you just shared. But I was also curious, are there other aspects of the body that you're interested in exploring?
I shared all of them, right? Because I'm like, I feel like each organ is like such a special entryway into like our emotional landscape, and they're highly spiritual. And again, like understanding the function of like the spleen and the kidney. And I got into herbalism wanting to make medicine to treat the symptoms of diabetes, and just thinking about some of the organs that are impacted by diabetes, like especially the kidney, the pancreas, like looking there. is something that I'm very interested in, and um, just want to make workshops around. And the feet, I did two workshops, only two over the last couple years, about how our feet are related to the dream world. Because like the ear and nada acupuncture, our feet have many meridians within it, and um meridians are energetic points that connect to each organ. And so working with the feet can be an incredible way to connect and target certain organ healing through foot massage. And I'm really also interested in deepening the relationship between how being connected to our organs through our feet, or even being connected to our feet that like ground us in so many ways, could be a really powerful way to connect to our dream worlds. And during those workshops, a lot, the feet workshop, the foot workshop, really, I noticed I guess when I developed it, I didn't think this would happen, but as it unfolded, I'm like, oh, of course, this makes sense. Um, Attracted a lot of people who dance and who have had surgical procedures on their feet, and which is my history. Like I, grew up taking dance classes, and I had a surgery on my right foot when I was 8 that really impacted like my relationship with my feet, and made me sometimes not even want to look at my feet. And as people shared, I thought, wow, like there's a moment in the workshop where we look at our feet. I set a timer for 2 minutes and was just looking at the feet. And I'm like, wow, it's really easy to go the entire day and not even touch our feet or look at our feet outside of taking our shoes off and putting them on, but like actually looking like what's going on with our toenails, like what's the coloring at the base, like is there any bruises, or what's the general shape? Like, does the shape look different? Is there inflammation? Is there, just it felt like a very vulnerable moment for many people to just have a quiet space to just look at the feet and kind of meditate with the feet. And I definitely want to do more work around that.
Please, please,
Mhm.
because I love the feet. I love taking care of my feet, and that's not something I always did. And
Yeah.
yeah, it just makes me think about people I don't know, it just makes me think about this also feels very vulnerable. I don't know if any of my family members listen to this, but it makes me think about some of my family members where maybe the feet have been neglected, and what does that mean for that family member, our family, the dream space, all the things. And yeah, that's why it's amazing when people are sharing sharing out here, just the way that you're making connections. I had no idea the dreams are connect or feet are connected to the dream world, dream worlds. I feel like
I
I
feel
feel
that
like
way too, like, thinking about family. I think I neglected my feet for a really long time. Um, because my mom didn't neglect her feet, because she had diabetes for so much of her life that she was really like, she was always going to the podiatrist, she was always getting medical pedicure, she was always like putting a ton of Vaseline on her feet and then socks. She was all about like preventative care around amputation, essentially, and like trying to promote circulation. And she's always like, you have to take care of your feet better. But it was always this thing with me, like having resistance to anything she shared because of the tension in our relationship. And it was really, well into my adulthood, with a friend of mine gave me as a present this lotion from Lush, like this pink peppermint, like foot exfoliating. There's like a wash, and then there's also a lotion that's like very tingly and has like grains in it. It's great for the feet, smoothing the feet out. And they were like, babe, babe, like I want you to really care for your beautiful feet. Like here is this lotion. This was like many years ago. And I was like, like it brought up like, oh, what I recognized in this workshop that other people were sharing, like so the shame, like the shame that is associated with like feet, especially like if you, especially like in relationship to being a femme person, and like ideas of like attractiveness, valueness, like value and worthiness, like in terms of like how like men may see your feet, that was like coming up, but also just kind of like at that time that friend gave me that lotion, I was working on my feet a lot. I was waiting tables and like my feet, I just at the end of the day my feet would just be like really hurting so bad, and they were like, I want you to care for your feet in this particular way. And it did bring me back to like that memory of my mom taking care of her feet and like my grandma asking us sometimes to file her toenails,
Mhm.
and like you were saying, like other family members where neglect was a situation. And yeah,
Yes. The feet.
the
The
feet.
feet.
Yeah, the feet.
Gosh, I'm just taking a moment.
Okay.
I'm just taking a moment because I'm just appreciating what you're sharing. Like I love just the maybe the vulnerability or just sharing what you're sharing because I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, but maybe not feel comfortable saying what we're sharing, but it's a real thing. It's a real experience, you
Yeah.
know, to kind of get it out there and realize, there's a lot of people having these similar experiences.
Yeah.
Um, well, I'm going to pivot a little bit and I'm going to return back to your swimming journey and then we're going
Yeah.
to keep swimming or flowing into a couple more questions here.
Okay.
So, well, um
Tell me.
so you've been on this swimming journey where you live in Brazil in Bahia. And like I said earlier, or before we press record, you're the second swimmer on the podcast. The first was with Nora Almeida, who is an open water swimmer. So where do you swim and what's your experience been like getting comfortable in the water?
Nora Almeida.
Yeah, she was the first one. Shout out to Nora. She just like swims around New York City and she travels and she swims and she in that episode she talks about how she still tries to swim with chronic pain. So
Ah, I have to listen to that episode.
yeah, shout out to the swimmers, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I swim in the ocean here. And it has been a journey. Like I took swim lessons when little and like have always known, well, since those swim lessons, how to float and the basic technique. But something about the moment I knew that my feet could not touch the ground, which I think a lot of people relate to. The moment my feet couldn't touch the ground, it doesn't matter if I know how to tread water. None of it matters. I'm terrified. I'm panicking. It's intense, And so when I got here, I decided this is a part of my life that I want to, this deep fear is a chapter I want to close. And the chapter I want to begin is fear is not respect. We know this. Respect is not fear. And so I honor the water, am a devotee in some ways, and how through this honoring and respect can I be more comfortable in swimming in deep water. And through swimming in deep water, how can I learn what my actual boundaries are in terms of listening to when it's time to pause, go further out, come closer in, that the harmony of listening to that intuition, the body, and like what is happening in the water. And so I've been working on that for a good 6 years now here. And one moment that was really pivotal in that, well, one was I took a break and I went home to South Carolina for a good 6 weeks to care for my mother. And I knew that I needed an outlet as a caretaker to like just be good. And so I was like, let me get to this YMCA and like deepen some of this swim work so that when I get back to Brazil, I'm even stronger. And so I worked with this instructor who was amazing and very no nonsense and very firm. And she got me in some swim fins. She got me, she essentially taught me what I was missing. Because a lot of my deep fear of drowning was about like running out of breath or getting tired or just dropping underneath the water randomly, and she helped me understand that, like, I grew up also as a young person, like watching a lot of fantasy and reading a lot of fantasy. So like in my mind, I'm like in my dream world was very much like this. I'm like, I could just be pulled under to live somewhere else, and I think to my adulthood, like some of those things remain, some of those thoughts, even though they, you know, seem irrational. And anyway, she helped me understand like through working together in the pool and teaching me strokes and how to breathe, that if my breathing is under control, like when things like water getting in the back of my throat and water getting in my nose, she would always say it's normal to get water in your nose, but like there are certain things you want to do to protect a lot of water from going like in the back of your throat. You don't want water going in your nose, but it happens as a result of being in the water. So she kind of like coached me through that. And so working with her and like working with fins was really transformative. And then I have a friend named Luna who does a lot of moon cycle work, who loves the water and is also a swimmer. And we had a meditation session in the water where, in the beginning of our friendship, when I didn't really know her very well, where she was just kind of like holding me and like talking me through how to trust the water and surrender to trusting and knowing that I'm held. And like I've had heard people talk about that process of like, going past a break and like almost drowning and like what helped them like not drown is like relaxing or surrendering to the process, like trying to get back but like surrendering, not fighting against the water. So like I'd heard stories like that, but like that session with Luna really helped me in taking that energy into every swim, like not rushing, slowing down if I get tired, pausing to float if I get tired, enjoying the floating, trusting that I'm floating, and kind of surrendering to like the enormity of the water and knowing that like I do want to like get out each time that I go in, but like
Mhm.
knowing that I'm surrendering to like different things may happen because the water, can change quickly depending on where you're swimming. So
Gosh. I totally hear about
yeah,
surrendering or surrendering and relaxing because for me right now, I'm trying to be stronger with treading water. And
yeah,
one of the swim instructors I work with, she talked about how you have to relax because I'm putting in too much effort. There's just too much effort in going on. And she's saying your body will do the work. It's like you gotta, you know? And with you sharing this, it's interesting, like the common knowledge around swimming of relaxing or, whatever the common not understanding is. Um, and the fact that you've been on this swimming journey for 6 years now and those in those waters, you know?
waters.
Um, like so do you see the change from when you first started to now? Like did you have like lots of anxiety? Oh yeah, because you talked about you not having anywhere to put your feet.
I had like I had so much anxiety. One of the things that did help was starting to swim, like starting some of my longer swims in a beach that was closer to the bay, so there were less waves. And so just kind of like tackling one fear at a time. So not trying to tackle the fear of deep water and the fear of getting I wasn't afraid of getting my head under the water, but I was afraid of like waves putting water in my nose. And I was afraid of having to cough and swim at the same time because it's like, okay, if I'm having to cough and swim, that means I'm drowning. But it's like, no, you're just clearing your throat. And so what helped me was starting to swim, and I set the intention in an area that a beach where actually there were a lot of surfers, like a lot of waves, very intense. I set this intention of like, okay, I'm gonna get my swimming together. But I did my deep work of like learning how to be okay in deep water with a combination of going to water that was more still and just kind of like working with deep water first with the fins. And then I also started training with a swim group. And these were swimmers who were doing like long distance open water swims. So it was I was working with their coach, and I wasn't getting the same exact drills as them, but I was getting drills that helped me with like strengthening my dive, strengthening my stroke, strengthening my breathing. And just growing in my capacity. So I'd go back and forth between like training in the pool to like then applying that technique to the intuition and listening to the water and listening to how my body was responding to the water. So now, and of course it's not linear. And so like for a good 2 years, I was like, yeah, I'm going further. I'm swimming, more consistently without stopping. Like I'll be ready to like do some real, like I'll be ready to go open water swimming with this group. And then there was like a whole year period in 2024 where at the beginning of the year, I felt really good in my swimming. And then after March, I was like, scared in the water again and just like kind of feeling like I was having panic attacks in the water. And then at the end of 2024, or actually, no, mid 2025, I was like, okay, what is going on emotionally that I'm feeling this anxiety again? And it was like, okay, let's slowly start going back into deep water. And so today, for instance, I swam really far out in the beginning of my swim in order to like I swam out from the shore, and then I wanted to go kind of like back and forth along the shore. And I realized like, wow, I swam out really far. And I was like, okay, it's okay that you swim out far. Like you like the self-talk is like soothing and calming. And I know more than anything, especially when I'm far out, that if I overreact to things that are normal, like getting water in my throat or nose, if I overreact to something that is just um, part of the process of being in the water, then it can become a situation that is dangerous. So like just reminding myself, like, oh, it's a part of the process for certain things to unfold in a certain way. Whereas in the beginning, I'd be like, oh my goodness, now it's like, I'm coughing. It's like, once I get through this, it's immediately time to swim back, or I need to prove to myself that I can swim back from really far, really fast, instead of being like, actually, let's slow down our swimming back so that like our breath is regulated. And like I got a cramp when I was really far out last week, and pausing on swimming, like floating, wasn't making me feel good. I felt like I was getting a little bit more anxious about the cramp, and I felt like the cramp was escalating. And I had my buoy with me. When I'm going really far out, I swim with a buoy and fins. And so I like took a moment and kind of like rested on the buoy. And then I was like, let's just swim back. I have the buoy, I have my fins, so I have some flotation support. Let's just for a minute swim with my arms and just give the legs a rest. And then when I got to the shore, I was able to like massage my legs and stuff. So just like,
Yeah.
meanwhile, like years ago when I caught a cramp far out, and I was also my voice, I was swimming with a friend, but I didn't have a voice. Like I was like sick that day and I couldn't yell out to my friend for help. So it was like, I was just like swimming really fast, like trying to get out of the water. I was like swimming through the cramp, which people advise you not to do. But I was like, I gotta get out of this water. Versus that was like years ago versus today. I'm like, okay, let's slowly get out. I have the buoy, like, and I'm grateful for that shift.
Ah, I'm just taking everything in. I'm just taking everything in because while you were talking, it reminded me of some things, Nora have shared, where basically I'm just
Oh,
like, it's a y'all have a I mean, I'm
I have to
I'm
meet
cultivating
Nora.
mine, but y'all, it's a relationship here. This ain't like, I'm just gonna, I like you're setting an intention because Nora talks about swimming as a ritual. You're setting an intention. You are talking very kindly to yourself, which I love that. Like, yeah, that makes sense. I just, it seems very peaceful, like I don't know. But I think like swimming in deep waters and swimming far out, like that can be very intimidating, but the more that you do it, the more comfortable you get. And I like how you say, the swimming journey is non-linear. Um, which I think is helpful because maybe sometimes I don't know, I find myself getting in the water and feeling like I should just know how to do something. I should just know how to do this, and then getting frustrated
Yeah.
when I think it's about the process, it's not just jumping in and just like if I don't know if I don't know if I'm
I
making
think in
sense.
allowing ourselves to be wherever we are in our process. And I like the process of allowing your body to do what it remembers or allowing our body to remember something is like also a nonlinear process and just like is a process in itself and like takes a lot of self-kindness and slowness and work. You're right. It's not just jumping in and being like, our bodies know how to do this. It's like we're trained day in and day out to go against what our bodies know to do or remember to do, like in terms of our rest cycles, in terms of all kinds of cycles, our eating cycles, like so yeah, like getting in the water, like it extends to everything we do. So like we're not gonna just like get in and like automatically remember these things. It's like retraining and remembering, which is, work that we can luckily do like alongside others.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
yeah, and especially like if you're not in the water all the time. So
Yeah.
that's why I think, having that relationship where some way, somehow you find a way to get in the pool, in the
Yeah.
ocean, some water body, just to have that consistent connection, even if there are some breaks. You know what I wanted to ask you is, so you speak Portuguese.
Hmm.
And so this is so interesting to me. So, when you went to Brazil, were you already speaking Portuguese, or was it, you became immersed in the language and then you started picking it up from there? Because I'm just like, what is it like getting swimming lessons in Portuguese?
I I studied Spanish before Portuguese and studied abroad here when I was in college. So took some Portuguese classes. I was by no means fluent after my study abroad period. And so there was kind of like the grammatical and structural foundation that supported me in really learning in this immersion when I came back this time. But yeah, taking swimming lessons at the pool in Portuguese was fun and funny and just like learning just like the words for like freestyle is like crawl. And to me, that
Wow.
sounds like crawl in English, like crawl, crawl, or growl, or crawl. It's like crawl. And so I'm thinking of like a baby crawling. So for some reason that translates to freestyle because like I'm kicking and moving like the arms, like these little like hearing things, and then like almost like a mnemonic device, like connecting it to a sound or a visual that I like, yeah, already know. And then yeah, just like learning new words. It's cool to put myself in environments that I just would want to be back at home because that is like truly an incredible way to like learn. It's like one of the best ways. It's immersion. It's one of the best ways to learn vocabulary. You're gonna learn it more quickly and have it be more embodied than like studying it online or like even seeing it in a film or for me or like even reading it in a book. So Yeah, and then like learning the meter, like swimming in meters versus yards, like the distance system. It's like taking in a lot at once. It's really exciting. It made it feel like even more exciting.
Yeah, because I'm just imagining you in the different language worlds of English and Portuguese, and just imagining your life where in one instance you're speaking English maybe with your family members, and then you're gonna meet with your friends at the beach, and now you're speaking Portuguese. You know, what is that language experience? You go back and forth.
Yeah, I go back and forth. I have friends here also who are from the States and who I speak English with. Like if we're sometimes in a group with mostly Portuguese speakers, we'll try to speak. I mean, we definitely speak with the group in Portuguese and maybe we'll go off to the side and like, speak with one another in English. But like that back and forth is fun. It feels like a exciting brain exercise. And just it's it's kind of like a back and forth between personalities in a way too, because I definitely express myself differently in Portuguese than I do in English. Like even my vocal intonations, my vocal journey, what I'm doing with the voice is also different, and it's just enjoyable to go back and forth. Maybe some days I notice like when I'm having a conversation that's more emotional, or even if I'm like walking down the street and I'm thinking about something like that's very like maybe dense for me in English, if I'm having really dense emotional thoughts in English and then I run into someone and they're like, oi to the wall. I'm like, it could be hard to extract myself from that deep English world of like, my dramas and traumas and, and then, being pulled out of that, like I'm usually grateful for it. It happens a lot. But I find myself kind of like stammering in back into the world of like Portuguese from that space sometimes. Um, yeah. What I'm enjoying a lot recently is like going to see Brazilian film in here in Portuguese. So no, no subtitles and just like working on my hearing in that way. It's because I love film. And so that's been a great experience alongside just swimming. And one of the beaches I go to is a really popular tourist destination. And even early in the morning, there are like tourists there who are swimmers from other parts of Brazil. And so it's like sometimes you'll be swimming and then, or I'll be swimming and then pause, and then someone else is kind of paused next to me and they'll just look over, in Portuguese and they're like, this water is so incredible, isn't it so good? And then, I'll respond and then we'll start talking about like the water, the nature of the water and swimming. And then I'll say something like, oh, the water's cold. And they're like, oh, it's so much warmer than where I came from. And this is how it is swimming where I came from. Or I had my buoy the other day and a couple was commenting on the fact that it was like tied around my waist. And they were like, oh, we swim a lot where we're from in the South. The water's really cold, but we don't wear our buoys like that. And I was like, well, how do you wear it? And they were like, oh, it's actually more like a book bag. So like kind of having this, um,
Wow.
commentary about the water with other swimmers, sometimes far out, sometimes closer to the shore in Portuguese, and sometimes going from like thinking in English. I'm definitely thinking in English while I'm swimming. If I am thinking, the thoughts are English, and then to sometimes pause and then like enter into this conversational space in Portuguese while like far out is it's really I love it. It's lovely. It's lovely. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just like
Come
processing.
here and swim.
I
You have to
would
come here
love
and
to.
swim.
I
Yeah.
would love to. I really would. I'm just processing because I realize when I listen back to the episode, sometimes I feel like I have to like feel the space, but I'm just taking everything in, and I just think that's so cool that you studied abroad and you learned another language, became bilingual, you're living in another country. You have like Like that's just cool to me, you know? Um, no, no, no. Mm-mm,
Okay.
mm-mm, mm-mm. Don't think that at all. We're
Okay.
having a private convo in the chat. Yeah, dear listeners. This is I'm so grateful because I'm like maybe I need to read swimming books. I need to watch swimming documentaries, but I'm relishing you sharing this because like I said, I want to become a stronger swimmer. It's one of my highest dreams. I just gotta be. I'm coming back to it. Well, I want to. So I have four more questions left, and then our time will close. But I wanted to circle back to you talking about how your dream life changed and the different places you've lived. And so from what I know, you've lived in South Carolina, California, New York City, and now you're in Bahia, Brazil. And one of the episodes I interviewed a dream researcher named Kelly Bulkley, and he talked about how he's doing research with folks to research what people in different parts of the world are dreaming about. And so I just wanted to kind of circle back a little bit to, you know, dream and place because you talked about your dreaming life in Beaufort and how the land and the place there specifically impacted your dreams. And I wonder, what's the dreamscape like where you live now?
Mm, the dreamscape, like, the dreams. What is the dreamscape like?
Oh my God, sorry if that sounds so intellectual and academic.
No, no, not at all. I think being by a large body of water definitely um impacts like just how I process my day to day in the waking world, and definitely impacts like the ancestral aspect of my dream. But funnily enough, a lot of my dreams here are about South Carolina. Like a lot of
Wow.
that landscape comes to my dream very often here. Or it'll be a blend of these landscapes and home. But I dreamed about this landscape a lot when I was in New York, like around the time that I was really wanting to live here and trying to figure that out. This landscape came to me, was in my dreams like weekly. And so I think there's something about like processing the memory of other places when like what my current environment is and how my current environment is supporting me in the processing of like the material, like the ephemera of like where I was raised. That's like in my body, in my mind, in my dream practice, how I'm processing it through being in an environment like outside of it, kind of how you have to like zoom out of a space to really understand or see the details. Like I think some of that is happening in my dream space here, around family and home and what is home. And I find that interesting in people who have like a lot of different locations that they may refer to as home, because I'm processing different homes at
Mhm.
outside of that home space, based on where I am. And so, yeah, a lot of my dreams here are about, my day to day, people at home, things that I need to be um, clear about or vocal about. Um, think foods that I need to be eating.
Yes.
They're like instructional, in a way. Um, and it also depends on the season, what's going on weather-wise, if there's a lot of wind, if there's a lot of rain. But yeah, there's a lot of instructional energy. There's a lot of energy of South Carolina. There's a lot of processing questions that I may have asked the night before.
Do you think that, I've heard my grandpa's Geechee, but he never really passed that down, past it never got passed down, but that is still there. And he has this interest in Brazil. and he taught himself to speak Portuguese. And I asked
Your
him the last time I talked to
grandfather?
him, yes, he taught himself to speak Portuguese. And the last time I talked to him, I said, if you could go anywhere, where would you go? He said he would go to Brazil, and then he would go to Angola, and then he would go to the Republic of Congo, and then he said he would go to Nigeria, Togo, and Benin. And you know what? I just feel like
That's
there,
also my list. We need to
oh,
meet.
yes, well, I want to connect him to people in Brazil because I'm just like, is there a Gullah Geechee connection to Brazil? Isn't uh,
Okay, interesting. Well, yes, yes, there is a connection. There's this linguist, Lorenzo Turner, who did a lot of yeah, foundational research around Gullah language connection to Sierra Leone and the Mende language. And that person, Lorenzo Turner, was also doing research here around like African influences on Portuguese. And so like there was this, this person making these linguistic connections. So there's that history. But funnily enough, a couple of weeks ago, I met this person, like who looked similar to me. It was like tall, dark skin, similar like cheekbone setup. And, we were sitting next to each other in this restaurant. Our tables, we were almost shoulder to shoulder. Our tables were so close. At one point, I looked over and I was like, why are our tables so close? And so I was with a friend, she was with a friend. But then she turns to me and, I heard her speaking Portuguese. So I assumed she's Brazilian. But then I heard her speak English. I heard her say a couple things in English and it sounded super Black American English. I was like, wow, her English accent is really good. And so she turns to me in Portuguese and she's like, oh my goodness, you're so beautiful. And I was like, I was thinking the same thing about you speaking Portuguese. I was like, but you know what? I heard you. Like, where are you from? She tells me where she's from in Brazil. Um, this neighboring state called Espírito Santo. But she was like, oh, but I live in Rio. And I was like, oh, cool. It's like, but I heard you speak English. Your English is really good. She was like, oh, my English is really good because I was raised in Queens. And I was like, what? I was like, what do you mean?
wait.
I was like, wait. I was like, I came here from New York. And I was like, oh, but my family's from South Carolina. And she was like, wait, my dad's from South Carolina. So I was like, wait, what? She was like, yeah, my mom is from Espírito Santo. My mom is Brazilian, but my dad is from South Carolina. So I was like, where's your dad from in South Carolina? I'm like, we're cousins. I was like, my dad's from Charleston. My brother's there living now. And I was like, oh my God, I'm from Beaufort. Like Beaufort is an hour and a half south of Charleston. And so we just had this moment of what? Like, what? What? And so we exchanged information. It was amazing. Like we talked, she showed me pictures of her dad, everything. And so a couple of days later, I went to go take a swim. And after my swim, I went to go get some juice. And I ran into her at the juice bar and she was like, you have to meet my mom. Her mom was there, like this beautiful dark skin, like our tones were similar is the thing. Like I see people here who are dark skinned all the time, and there was something about a similarity in our undertone, that was like,
Mhm.
wow, we actually really look like we could be family. And I've been missing feeling like I see people who look like kin, and so met her mom. That was amazing. Her mom lives in Harlem. Hung out with them for juice for breakfast. And I now have this like, Charleston Gullah Brazilian connection that I have felt in my heart. So to see it manifested in another human that looks like very similar to me it blew me away. It made me so happy. It brought me a lot of joy in that interaction. Yeah. And her last name is a last name that is very, very familiar and popular. And I have a shared cousin with that last name in South Carolina. So it just felt like a family ancestral touchdown, It was great. It was great.
Yes. I don't know
Yeah.
about any of the other southern states, but I know there must be some between South Carolina and Bahia. Well,
Louisiana.
we know that, we know why, but
We know why. We know exactly
yeah.
why.
But just think about like the dreaming, and like maybe there's like some sort of through line or some to Highway or something, Dream Highway. I don't know, but the fact that y'all met in that moment, you know,
Mind blowing.
yeah. Yeah, because there's a lot of people in the world. You know, and because the last episode was about time, and like you could have left 5 minutes before, you any sort of situation could have happened, but that happened.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm grateful. I'm grateful, especially because, I've been wanting to connect with more elders, like people 65 and older, and like build relationship. And so that just felt like it aligned with that intention that I've been setting out as well.
Mm.
So
Wow.
yeah.
Well, while you've been in Brazil, you've been doing this dream work, making plant medicine, dyeing silks, and making bucket hats. Like I said before we press record, you're working with your hands a lot, which is like I feel like that's a meditation. So when did you start making silks?
I started making silks in 2024 at the beginning of the year. I had just finished making these really huge crocheted um, hand dyed weighted blankets. And I just needed a break. I needed to work with a material that was lighter. And I felt like I just wanted to have fun with a new material. So I started dyeing the silks.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
what's your process like? Because it sounds like you work with plant, like Blue Lotus.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So while I'm working with the plants or I do a lot of like when I'm outside at sunset or if it's like a really overcast day, like a lot of looking at the sky and the water and like those tones, and then kind of thinking about those tones while I'm dyeing work. And so I have like my sets of natural dyes, like beet, turmeric, coffee, cochineal, the insects, indigo, sandalwood, and then I have like my chemical dyes. So I kind of like merge those processes. And then like while things are drying, I like to spray them with herbs. So I have a set of soaps that I spray with herbs to support the dreaming process. And you got one. It'd be cool to hear
I
about
did.
how your dreams have been with that dream silk. And so it's a process of a lot of like letting the silks like sit overnight and for days in some of the dyes, and then letting them dry in the sun, and then infusing it and submerging them or spraying them in herbals. Yeah.
Yeah, I got one of your silks. If anyone wants a silk, go check out Charmaine's website, Instagram, get you a silk. I
Get you a
just
silk.
I just remember how would you say that in Portuguese? You know, please buy a silk.
Get you a silk. Oh, if like get you a silk will be
I
like pega uma seda. But like a more formal like buy a silk will be like compre uma seda. Compre
That's
uma seda de
great.
Charmaine.
Yes, because you have
Comprar,
such
pode
a
comprar.
what'd you say? Say it again.
Pode comprar, pode comprar. You can go ahead and buy one.
Because you have such a variety. I really love maybe your interest in tones and colors because the silk that I got, what really stuck out was
You
like
got
these.
Jupiter Sunrise.
I did, and I got it because it was called Jupiter Sunrise, and
Yeah,
because it 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 was you wrote how it was you were seeing the sunrise, and it just had this orange and yellow and blue, and I don't usually feel attracted to orange, but I
yeah.
felt attracted to the orange. Lately I've been into yellow, but I got that silk, and when I first got it, I was putting it on my pillow.
I
Um,
remember sending you a picture.
yeah, I would put it on my pillow, and then at some point, then I started wearing it on my head because
Yeah,
it never dawned on me that it could be some like a head wrap of some kind. So now I'm into like wearing silk on my head.
beautiful.
Um, and yeah, it is very light, but I also just like the idea of this this piece of artwork or this dream offering that's
Yeah.
wrapped around my head and the process that went into it. Yeah, there's one of the silks you have. It is like yellow. I don't know. I'm really into the yellow lately. Um, but I feel like you've been talking about Jupiter for a while because there's some newsletters where you've talked about Jupiter and you did like a workshop about Jupiter. And um, I don't know, like, what is your interest in Jupiter?
Jupiter has a relationship with like a planetary relationship with burdock and the liver. And about 13 years ago, I had this really potent dream where I traveled to Jupiter. A friend and I had, in our waking life, we're like, oh, haven't seen each other in a while. Let's try to meet up in our dreams. And she was like, all right, where are we going to meet? It needs to be someplace that's familiar to both of us. So I was like, okay, like let's set the intention to meet at Prospect Park. Like at, we picked out where exactly in the park we were gonna meet because we both knew that park really well and loved that park. And then that night, my dreams were very vivid. And I the next morning I was like, I sent a text and I was like, hey, so what were your dreams like? Because my dreams were like, this is what happened. And she was like, I don't remember much, but I know I did a lot. And so then she looked up, she was like, based on the environment you described, it sounds like we went to Jupiter together. Because like I saw a couple of the moons and some of the other things that were happening in the dream is like related to law and justice. And those are things that are represented by that planet as well. And so Jupiter just seems like a planet that arises for me in my either in my dream world or otherwise when I'm like making big transitions. Before I moved to LA, I went to the Brooklyn Museum like for their first Saturdays, and there was an astronomy club hanging out and with their telescopes, and they were inviting people to look up at the full moon, and Jupiter was really present. So I got to see the surface of the moon, which was of the full moon, which was really incredible. But then I was also able to see Jupiter, and I felt like I was kind of being ushered into a new experience, a new city by Jupiter, by this experience. And then just like in different moments here and by year, Jupiter makes itself very um in my field of vision. Um, and so I'm still learning what this relationship with this planet is, but it's been a good 13 years of us being in conversation more
Oh my
personally.
gosh. That
Yeah.
dream is dope. That's a dope dream. Y'all went to Jupiter, you saw Jupiter's moons. Um, you got this 13-year relationship conversation going on
Been
with
in it.
Jupiter.
We've been in it.
Like,
I've been.
what? What?
Mhm.
Well, this is my last question.
Oh.
You are on an exciting new path. You are starting an apothecary. I'd love for you to share with our listeners what you're envisioning and share about your fundraiser.
Yes, I am creating an arts and wellness space that I'm currently fundraising for. I'm so grateful for where we are in the fundraiser, and there's still a ways to go. But I am creating a home space for myself. I moved recently, and the move just really, I had like some mold and some other things happening in my apartment. And as I was looking at spaces, I just when I came across the space that I'm in now, I was just really enlivened and inspired. And I've been wanting to build a dark room and an apothecary for a while and thinking about whether to do that in a space that's separate from my home, you know, getting together with different artists here and doing that sort of thing. And I've had those conversations over the years. And, I was also thinking like, okay, I could have an apothecary and then have like a pop-up, like a tea shop, like, find, which neighborhood that makes more sense in. And then when I saw this space, I was like, oh, the home is so central to, and dreaming is so central to my practice. And some of the rooms just spoke very directly to me because of their setup, because of how they were organized. Like, okay, this will be a dark room because of its proximity to like certain sinks, and because it was like a little further out, so it'd be easy to seal the doors and kind of have a space. And there's a door that's separate than the main entrance that goes into the area that would be the dark room. Like all these kind of logistical things were kind of coming up, like, this would be great to like kind of start this collective space I've been dreaming about. And just other areas in the home, it just felt like, this is where this space needs to exist and begin. And so I'm creating a space that will be an atelier, a studio for my silk works, for my textile works. And there will be exhibition space and opportunity for artists here where I'm located. There's also space for wellness practitioners. I'm a Reiki practitioner, and I do that work, and I've connected with, acupuncturists, massage therapists here. And so there is a space where people will be able to offer their services, um, and yep, be paid for their services. In this space, I also envision like supper club events, foods that I will cook and that other people who love cooking, who I've met during my time here, will have access to, and also film screening events. So it's gonna be like an active space. I aim to begin events by the end of this year. And they may start off on a quarterly basis just to feel out like the events on a quarterly basis. And there will be a dedicated special schedule, excuse me, for wellness services and when those are offered. And, you know, I'm getting around to like what those timelines will look like, but right now I'm doing the renovating work, like we mentioned before recording, like sourcing materials for building shelves, um, sourcing where I can get chemicals for the dark room, processes of developing film and printing, and also things like practical things like the jars, sourcing bulk herbs. I'm in that process, and the funds are supporting like the literal building out of the space at this moment.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, for anyone who wants to support um, Charmaine's new this space that you're creating, we'll put the fundraiser link in the show notes and
Thank
your
you.
website. Well, there's going to be a list of resources, so anyone who wants to check out your work more and support, that'll be there. Charmaine, thank you.
Simone,
Thank you so much for meeting me at the through
me.
line. Do you
Thank
have
you
any
for
last?
inviting me. It's just nice to see you again and to talk.
Same.
I love your voice. I love the texture of your voice. And so it's
Oh,
just
thank you.
hear you speaking and envision you in the water with me, and envision
Yeah.
your swim journey and send you like love on your swim journey, and just to talk about what's going on. It's been great. Thank you for this opportunity and for the beautiful questions.
Yes, and I'm sending you love also on your swim journey, the apothecary, everything.
You.
Everything. It is done.
Thank you so much.
Ashe. Wow. Oh my gosh. Thank you all for listening. Thank you again, Charmaine.